All right. Well, welcome everyone. My name is Terrence Latimer. I am the owner operator of Black Cactus Co-working, a desert co-working space based in downtown 29 Palms. This is actually the first episode of our Cactus Sessions as part of Black Cactus TV. And I'm really excited about the conversation that we're going to be having today with Nadia Clarke. And just to provide a little bit of background before I ask Nadia to introduce herself, Nadia is a Army veteran, a former law enforcement officer, and the founder of 1717 Publishing. Is that correct?
2717.
2717
Mhm.
Publishing,
Mhm.
as well as 2717 Consulting. And so today's conversation, we're going to be diving into explore what it takes to launch and scale a business in a small town and rural communities, which I'm really excited about. Welcome, Nadia. How you doing today?
Thank you for having me. Thank you for that. Thank you for that wonderful introduction.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. So tell us a little bit about yourself before we hop into today's meeting.
Yeah, so just like Terrence said, what he didn't say was I grew up out here. Both my parents were in the Marine Corps. So I went to part of elementary, junior high, high school out here, and I left for a while, went to college, became the police, up in the Bay Area, Oakland, California, to be exact, and also in the Army Reserves. And I also did some corporate security afterwards for a little bit. For now, I think it's a Fortune 100 company,
Oh.
and that that whole life path led me right back here in the desert.
What's up with that? Why back in the desert of all places?
Yeah, so my time in law enforcement, in the military, and corporate security, fast paced, big city life, I encountered a little bit of hardship
Mm,
along my pathway, especially being the police in Oakland. I've never seen things like that before. I didn't know humans could be like that toward each other. You hear about it in the news, but to see it firsthand and to be a part of it firsthand, it can change you pretty dramatically. And I was trying to continue on through life like a normal person, and I've had these extraordinary, unnormal experiences, and I'm like, I'm trying to heal in this place. As great as it is, it's keeping me down. The
mm,
environment. I needed something different. I needed nature. I needed quiet. I needed to hike. I needed to be around people that knew me before law enforcement, you know?
mm.
So
Oh,
go
sorry.
ahead.
Please continue.
Yeah, no, it's all those things, and I got critically injured while on the job in Oakland. Not critically, my body's still intact, but my mind took a big hit after a huge incident that occurred. And I wanted something different for my life, and so I came back here.
Yeah, yeah, and we're gonna learn a little bit more about that incident, which hopefully you're comfortable
Of
um,
course.
talking about it. I think my initial reactions, just mindful of even my own journey. I'm a city boy, LA, born and raised. And but I do also have some deep roots in the desert, and small towns in general, rural communities, and that my dad's side of the family is actually from, Adelanto, Victorville area.
Okay.
And so I remember having to come out from LA during the summertime, and
Ooh.
Nadia, I used to hate it. I hated it. I was like, man, get me back to the city, to the beach.
Mhm.
I'm trying to kick it,
Mhm.
like there's nothing to do out here. Like it's boring.
Yeah.
And then life decides that life wants to happen. And
Yes.
uh I went to college for a bit out in Texas in another small town, and I'm trying to tell you, like, this was such a small town in the middle of West Texas that on Friday nights, it was nothing to do,
Yeah.
and So what me and the gang used to do, we just used to go to Walmart and mess around. You know what I'm saying? Walk around Walmart and just like get in a little hijinks and
Yeah,
you know, but if we're even mindful of just like patterns and how, life just takes us in different places, what I recognize, I think, some of my own trauma living in LA, for example, and I did New York for a bit, after as well. Um, but the big cities, they just have this way of suffocating you, I think sometimes. And you're not always aware of what's going on, like it takes so much to really survive in the big city. You always kind of have to be on your toes, whether it's, related to the violence or someone trying to pull a fast one on you, or just even trying to dodge traffic, for example. Like you
mm,
have all this stimulus coming at you,
right. Hmm.
and being out here for about 6 years now, or 5 years now, going on my sixth year. I moved out here during COVID, and the peace and quiet that then translated to personal levels of safety and thought and what was possible, it was a game changer.
Hmm.
And so and my trauma was not nearly as crazy as yours, which, I would love to first know if, my thoughts have landed on you. And then second, I would love for you to maybe talk to us a little bit about your experience and just some of the dangers that you found in the city.
Of course. I mean, to speak on first the city, like I was so excited to get there. It's so different than how I grew up in a rural, predominantly military, predominantly white area.
Right.
And the city is very noisy in a great way. We can sit there and harp on all the things that it can cause and all this stuff, but let's be real. Between the culture, the food,
Yes.
the
Yes.
exposure to different people, the availability of just activities to do, just you name it. Especially being in California, it's like, you could literally drive in one day to the snow, to the
That's
beach,
right.
to the desert. You know what I mean? Which is pretty dang cool.
Yeah.
Um, but especially in the way I was living life, being in the military and law enforcement and hanging out in the city. I was working, partying,
Hmm.
arresting people, riots,
Oh my gosh.
homicides, you know what I mean? Shootings, stabbings. It eventually took its toll. And for me, like, I've always claimed it as like an infestation, for lack of a better articulation.
Mm.
It's like these things I was experiencing were like attaching themselves to me in
Mm.
such a way that it became very noisy for me.
Yep.
And like I said, I tried to remain in the city, but as I continued to try, it's like everything became noisier and noisier and noisier, and I couldn't even see myself. I had so many questions of who I was out here, especially after like, and I'll just get into what happened to me. So as a police officer, like I said, I was working in Oakland, California. I was actually a sergeant at the time, and I was responding to assist another sergeant on a call. And as I'm traveling to help the sergeant, I get T-boned in the middle of this intersection by a drunk driver. And there's 3 lanes of traffic on this roadway. He hit me so hard, and I was in the number one lane. So the number one lane, if you count over, is always the one closest to the median, the middle. He hit me so hard out of the turning lane, he knocked me 3 lanes.
Mm.
And two, I can't remember if I went into the light pole or on top of it. I know there's a light pole involved, and I almost went into the building right there. I located in the corner. On that corner of that building that I'm speaking of is a liquor store. It's the only one in this particular area of East Oakland.
Mm.
And there was a guy inside who, um, prior to this event, had been writing all over his social media that he wanted to kill a cop. He'd just been released from prison, from my understanding, released from prison for some sort of robbery charge. He did a little bit of time, and he was just he was just out, 29 years old. He sees me in this car stuck. So he comes on my passenger side as I'm looking out, trying to assess everything, coming back to, and just under the realization like I was just in an accident. I see this gun barrel in my passenger side window, and
Mm.
this guy that looks like the two of us standing at the at my window, dressed in all white. How fitting, right? Dressed in all
Mm,
white,
mm, mm.
firing his gun at me. Very confused, like, wait, what? Like I was
Right,
just in a car accident and now I can't seem to move. I can't get out. My there's a cage in the back of me, the driver's side smashed in front window. The only way out is where this guy is standing with this gun, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, this is my last day on Earth.
right.
Like, are you kidding
Mm,
me right now? Like, I always had the notion, like, 'cause being a police, especially in the area that we're in, like, you just never know what's gonna happen. It could be my last day, and just, I thought I was ready till I wasn't.
mm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And, but the event, it like took something away or off or something off my spirit, out of my spirit, whatever, however you want to categorize it, and just it sent me on a on its own journey. So I knew like police work was over, military was over, my life as I knew it was over.
Mm. Goodness. So you almost had a little bit of a rebirth.
100%.
Yeah.
I just didn't realize it at in those moments because, I had to be fully transparent, like I had wrapped my entire identity in being the police,
Mm.
being an army officer, just all around badass, I'm just playing. I wrapped my entire identity in all those things. And at the time I was on my way to purchase my third home, like I was investing, I was in school at the time, and all those things came crashing down and were ultimately stripped.
Goodness. Goodness.
And I was just left like, I don't, I don't know who this person is.
Mm,
Like, I don't know anything about myself.
mm. So, I mean, goodness gracious, number one, obviously, and we've talked before, and so I think I get new details, every time I hear the story, and just for the audience, I appreciate you being willing to share and be vulnerable with what is ultimately a reliving or rehashing of what is probably one of the worst moments of your life. So I appreciate that. Um, that being said, and I'm so mindful how, particularly here at like Black Cactus, where I have a co-working space, right, or we have a co-working space, and that it becomes a little bit tricky to not attach our identities to our jobs, and particularly when our jobs are based in a certain community environment, et cetera, et cetera. So, what I'm wondering is, can you maybe talk to us a little bit about, that rebirth journey and what it took for you to sort of leave the law enforcement, the military career in the past, and what it was like to embrace this new identity as a business owner?
Oh man, I went through trials and tribulations. I tell you, man, like the only and I came to this conclusion of life. The only way through it is through it.
Mm,
If you try to go around it, guess what? You start here, you try to go around it, guess where you're gonna end up?
back in a circle.
Right back where you started.
Yeah.
So the only way through it is through it. And so, I did the thing. I'm gonna date myself, YOLO. I tried to just live fast and lose because I was just like, what does it matter? I could die any day. Even though I
Mm,
didn't
mm,
die, I
mm.
didn't even respect the fact that this thing almost happened to me. It's like there was two sides of me competing. Like this extraordinary thing happened. Like I was a fish in a barrel. I should have been dead, and I wasn't. And the other side of me, it was like, well, I guess I'm alive. Literally, that's and I mean that in the strongest way possible. I guess I'm alive. So I'm just gonna do whatever it is that I want to do.
Mm,
And so those two sides were like beefing with each other
mhm,
hard. And
mhm,
so I went through a lot of spiritual and emotional battles and also really bad physical battles. They manifested physically in my body.
mm.
Like for a while, I even walked with a cane because it's
Wow.
just the pain was just radiating throughout my body. And like I had a couple I had a couple people say like I was a hypochondriac, and I'm just like, if
Wow.
you knew what was going on in my body, like you
Right.
know what happened to me. I'm not just I'm not making this up. Like everything hurts.
Mm, mm,
Everything hurts all the time. And so for me, the first order of business was reconciling what 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 was even going on, what
mm,
happened, what was it that I saw, what was it that I actually experienced, and why was it that I went so far away from who I originally was? Um, I I had to sit down and take thorough inventory and not be afraid of the things that I would uncover.
mm,
I had to lean on something bigger than me because me wearing the crown was too heavy, and heavy is the head that wears the crown.
mm.
And I was just hunchback because my head was just so far down trying to carry the burdens of everything and everybody that I came across. And so like man, I I was on different psych meds for a while.
Yeah.
I I was on different other types of medication as well. I tried plant ceremonies. I went to I went to church, like like I did different self-help things. I read every self-help book under the sun. I hired different coaches. I tried to hire different physical therapists. I had to go to cognitive therapy for a while just to reformulate my head, my mind, because just
Mm,
basic skills like you and I would generally take for granted now, like I
mm.
couldn't do. Like I couldn't tell you left from right. I developed a little stutter. Like
Wow.
these things that people don't know because I tried to keep it locked in because I was just like, I don't know what's happening. I don't know how I'm gonna come out of this.
Mm.
I don't know what my life's gonna be like. So I just knew I didn't want it to be that way and continue in such a way. So I took tremendous inventory and really started holding my feet to the fire, holding myself accountable for the way I was living life.
Yeah.
And that was the first and foremost thing I had to do.
So what I'm hearing as part of your rebirth process was, and this is so much, I mean, in entrepreneurship, in my opinion, launching a business is lots of things. I mean, number one, going back to, your analogy of these two conflicting sides of yourself. I'm always mindful that as entrepreneurs, we're almost living life on the edge of a knife,
Mhm.
in that we are constantly having to die and be reborn in so many different ways. You've got these bright ideas and you want to try something new, but and sometimes you go all in and you invest all your money, or you got this idea, right? And maybe it works out, maybe it doesn't. And the only person that can keep you from going typically is yourself, right?
Mhm.
The market is competitive, there's a lot of options out there, right? And so, it becomes a little bit challenging to not marry yourself to any one idea while also being, fully committed and recognizing that no one's coming to save you in so many different ways.
Mhm.
Now, what I'm also then mindful of, just listening to your story, is this process. And what I'm hearing is this analogy of like having to learn or relearn in this instance, right? Which we're, if we're mindful of that process of like, being reborn, almost like Benjamin Button. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Like you're born, you have to learn how to walk and talk and learn your environment and be able to, grow and again, in this instance, regrow. And so, number one, I applaud you for, because, what I think I also heard is that you, as part of this relearning or this learning process, you sought an education, right? You sought how to mature yourself, how to tap into your spirit, how to tap into your mind, how to, personify like your body again. What does it mean to even live in this world as this new person, where you're not having to chase down bad guys and, do all of those things, right? And so, maybe you can talk to us a little bit more about, once you were acclimated, you were, feeling more confident in this new world, this identity where you're like, okay, I'm not a law enforcement person anymore. I've got myself right. I'm ready to get back in there and become this new, amazing, beautiful person. What was that like?
So I'll preface this by saying, like Jesus said this.
Okay.
I don't remember the entire scripture, but the end of it says, "Tomorrow has worries of its own."
Mm, mm,
There's nothing I can do tomorrow. It
mm,
doesn't exist yet. There's nothing I could do that's behind me. What has been behind me is done. It led me to the point I'm in right now. And every
mhm,
time I cast my reel into the past, I start to become depressed. And those thoughts ruminate on what I shoulda, coulda, woulda done.
mhm,
And if I go too far out in the future, the anxiety creeps in, wondering
mhm,
what
mhm.
if, what if, what if. I had it in my head that I was going to be a captain of police. My peer group's in their 19th year. I
Wow.
was going to be a captain of police by now.
Wow.
I would have had, I had it all mapped out. I knew how many houses I was going to own. I knew how much money I was going to have in the bank. I knew, you know what I mean? Everything. I had it dialed in. And then that happened.
Right.
And so it made me even rethink my approach to just life and anything that came into my pathway in this life, entrepreneurship being one of them. It's like like you said, there's so many ways that we can get caught up in depression and anxiety, doubt, fear, you name it. But what
Mm,
does it actually mean? Absolutely nothing. The only person that knows they failed is who? You.
mm, mm.
All I can do is just put myself out there. You're either going to receive it or you're not. I'm not for everybody.
Right. That part right
You
there.
aren't for everybody.
That part
So
right
stop trying
there.
to be for everybody.
That part right there. Yep.
The people will find you when you are vulnerable and
Hmm.
authentic and can
Hmm.
pour into others. But you cannot even begin to do that unless you first take inventory of yourself and fill your own cup up first.
That's
And you
right.
can't do that unless you are true and authentic to yourself. You cannot do that until you're accountable for the things that you've done that led you to this point to even consider taking inventory. Those things of doubt, those fear, like I've had a gun in my face. I mean, mine's is extreme, but it's like,
Woo.
what's the worst that can happen in entrepreneurship? Someone says no.
Right.
Do you have a house still? Do you have a roof over your head? Do you have food in your belly? Do you have clean water? Do you have clothing on your back?
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Like you start thinking of life like that. You start thinking of everything that you're actually grateful for. Everything else is just a cherry on top.
Yeah. And yeah, and I totally resonate with that. And I so appreciate, both of our experiences. I think number one, like growing up in LA, where it's so competitive, and this is sort of my second go around in the entrepreneurship world, right? And my leadership style, well, and even the way that I've always approached even the jobs that I've had, I'm typically like, get my hands dirty, we're gonna
Hmm.
figure it out, and that has served me sometimes, and it's hurt me other times, right?
Hmm.
Whereas, and so I got my butt kicked the first time I launched a business, and I took a job, right? I was, working remotely. I moved out here for some, family, like I was helping my family deal with some stuff. We had some property out here and, I couldn't wait to get back to LA. I was like, I'm going back to LA. I'm going back to LA. And it took me a little bit of time. And, ultimately I transitioned away from, that job. And, I was sort of in this, I was in the desert. I was like trying to figure out what I was going to do. And I was like, you know what, brother, but you're still here, man. Like, and you've been through, you lost everything, you know what I mean? Like, and
Hmm.
you, you're still here, you're still kicking, like to your whole point, and it's, I had a place to live, I had food, I had water, you know what I mean? Like, I had all of the things. And so, so much of, in my opinion, entrepreneurship is resiliency, right? Which is something that I really recognize and appreciated about this community out here in the desert is how resilient this community is based off of the extreme environment. And now it's not LA or Oakland extreme, but it's extreme in a different way, right?
Hmm.
You know, in the extreme heat and, you know, having to not having as much of the things readily available at your fingertips, right?
Yeah.
And so, you know, in my opinion, like the businesses that have been able to stick it out here, there's like a lot to, in my opinion, be admired related to, you know, you don't necessarily have like the same tools or the same resources that you would
Right.
have in a major metropolitan area, yet be resourceful. You could figure it out. And
Hmm.
I think, you know, to your other point, it's also then mindful of like, well, what circles are you walking around in, and who are you hanging out with, right? Are you hanging out with the people that can tell you that you can do it? Or are you spending time listening to the people telling you that you can't do it?
Was it your net worth is your net worth?
That part right there.
It's a very true statement.
Come on, right? Your
It's
network. Well, can you say it for our audience?
your net work
Uh,
is your net worth. The five people you hang around the most, and you're the sixth,
that
guess what you're
part.
gonna be like?
That
That
part.
is fact. It's cliche. Cliche doesn't, it's not a bad thing. It just means there's a consistency to it. It's been around for a minute.
That part.
Maybe something you should pay attention to.
That part right there. Yeah, and that's, you know, anecdotes like wise sayings, you know.
Hmm.
And again, I think that man, there's so much to say to say to that in my opinion, you know, and that's where, you know, you sort of recognize like in these major towns, you know, a lot of people are perpetrating. They're not being authentic, they're not being real. You know, they really believe it's like seeing is believing, you know,
Yeah.
and a lot of people are fronting, you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Versus like out here, like identifying community of like, yo, like I'm hurting or I'm struggling and I need some help or I need some advice. And
Hmm.
like having people that are really interested in building you up. Now, not to say that you can't find that in a major city, you know what I'm saying? But, and this goes back to the poet in me. I always say the desert is full of deserters and those who have been deserted, right? And so, you know, so much of that, in my opinion, is that this is actually one of the last places that you want to be completely isolated and completely alone.
Oh yeah, because
You feel me?
you can definitely be alone out here if you
Right?
wanted to. This, I mean, people come out here for that purpose. You could pick places still in this area and just you want to be alone on that mountain, you can be alone on that mountain.
Right.
But what is it? There's a saying like you can go fast by yourself or
With
far with
others,
others, you
that part
know?
right there.
And I'm not trying to go fast. I've done that. I've lived a fast life, and it's
Hmm.
got me here trying to work together so I can go farther.
That part right there. Which, I mean, and that's like, so to give everybody, you know, some understanding. Now, you know, number one, I would encourage you to, you know, be mindful of who you invite into your tribe, into your community. You know, not everybody gets to kick it. Not everybody deserves to be around you. And one of my sayings is, you know, you got to protect your teams. Teams is an analogy for your time, or an acronym, excuse me, for your time, your energy, your attention, your money, and your space, right? And so, you know, mindful of the way that I operate out in the desert, you know, I like working with who I like working with. And I also like meeting new people that my friends say I need to know and like have in my life. And so, you know, Nadia and I met just a couple weeks ago, you know, and I
Mhm.
have been working with Sheldon of T's Shirts, who is going to be an episode, he's going to be in an upcoming episode of Cactus Sessions. And, you know,
Sheldon's a good dude, man.
Sheldon is a good dude,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
And so just to, you know, lay the land a little bit, one of my clients out here in the desert, right, needed some business cards. And so, you know, rather than, you know, like, and I designed the business cards, but rather than outsourcing them to some big company or whatever, I was like, let's keep it local. Locals supporting locals, you
Yeah.
know? And so I placed an order with Sheldon as part of like the merchandising product and services that he offers. And when it was time to come pick up the business cards, I see Nadia hanging out, inside t-shirts, and I'm
I
like,
wasn't just hanging out. I wasn't just
oh,
hanging out. I was
so
doing
what were
business.
you doing up there?
I was
I didn't
doing
even know.
business.
Okay, I see you. I see you. I see you. I see you.
Yeah, I have some projects in the work, so yeah,
Okay, all
doing some
right.
stuff. Yeah.
But and then I pick up the business cards, we say hello, and I'd actually heard about you through the grapevine, which is another great thing about being in these rural communities, right? Like it's like you hear people and you're like, oh, okay, I really do have an opportunity to meet this person.
Hmm.
It just hadn't happened yet, and so you want to talk about divine timing. And so we exchange cards or exchange information, or no way, I take that back. I said I was going to follow up with you, and as I'm walking out, you call me back, and you're like, "Yo,
Yeah.
Terrence, like let's talk a little bit more. Like, let me make sure that." Or that's when you gave me your information,
Yeah.
and we decided that we were going to see if we could, do some business together. And so, I guess like what I would love to know, for this community is talk to me a little bit about, how you have found your tribe out here in the desert based off of the vulnerability, the time that you spent understanding who you are, what it is that you like to do, and the ways that you can add value to the people out here that are, for all intents and purposes, they need you.
Well, I like to think of it like this, like people are in your life for a season or a reason.
Okay.
And so think of it like that. It's like I'm in the season of just rediscovery. I don't know who I am. I'm in this back in this rural area,
Mm.
like where I have to search out the community. So I landed in a couple different spots. I landed with a group called Tree. They're a veterans
Yep.
group out here that deal with specifically veteran isolation.
Mm.
And I met the creator of Tree at the Pilates studio in Joshua Tree. Was trying to again on the search on the quest of healing this body. And she saw my stature and she first thing she's like, "Were you in the service?" And I was like, looked her up and down and was like, "Yeah." And then we have since become fast friends, but through them, I was able to attend a couple of workshops, like artistic workshops. I
Mm.
was in a play.
Wow.
I performed. I actually, because I write a lot, and I performed a piece that I had written for a crowd of like 300 for a fundraiser, and it excited something in me again. It's like, oh, there's this whole other side that I hadn't even started to explore yet, and now they're just, again, it's that season or a reason. They're pulling this thing out of me that I had it buried so deep, and being in that community, it just like woke something up. I now had hiking friends, you know? I now could just talk art. I could talk just different parts of life. I didn't have to just sit here and stew on my police career. They 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 liked it, but it was also just like uh we got to talk about other things. And then from there, I actually produced what's showing on your screen now, that book that is now published through 2717 Publishing, Things I Think About in Other Works, a healing expression through creative expression, a
Mm.
healing through creative expression, excuse me. Um, because I had this space in this room to express myself in a way that I didn't think was even possible. So that's, I can tell you right now, like for me, having community shaped this version of me that's heading in this direction, that allowed me to be creative, that allowed me to, from creativity, branch into entrepreneurship. Because I
Right.
not only was I being poured into, I was being filled up. And so therefore, like I said earlier, if I'm filled up, I can therefore pour out.
Mm. Yeah, and that's really what I mean. Number one, shout out to you for, not allowing your story to just drive you down.
Oh,
You
I
know,
almost did. Don't get it twisted. I
right?
was
Hey,
like,
hey, hey,
hey,
almost, but didn't.
you
You
didn't,
know what I'm
but it
saying? Because
didn't.
you
That's
still got a
right.
smile on your
Woo.
face and you
Yeah,
still embrace the healing aspect, right?
yeah.
Which,
Thank you.
that's one thing that I do love about entrepreneurship. At the highest level, it's all about creativity and creative
Yeah.
expression and
Hmm.
taking our trauma, in order to solve problems for other people and that's where, I want to encourage you to remember how integral you are to all of this is that if you don't do what it is that you know how to do based off of what you've done,
Hmm.
right? There are other people that are suffering because they don't know how to do what you just did.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Which is like something really deep to think about, in my opinion, in that, your ability to channel your creative expression, right, then, in my opinion, allowed others to realize, like, hey, well, you know what? Like, there is a path to healing.
Yes,
And what's wild about it is that, like, it's your story, which means that you
exactly.
get to package it up and sell it and put it in a way that, feels comfortable and confident for you, that then allows you to figure out new and different problems to solve. You
Exactly.
feel me? So talk to us a little bit about this process of putting together this book. It sounds as though, again, like working through Miltree, who, I'm very familiar with, they do. And so to give everybody a little bit of perspective, we've got what are known as, there's the high desert versus the low desert. And, what separates out the high desert from the low desert, at least in this area, is the Joshua Tree National Park. So the
Hmm.
low desert is like Indio, Coachella, which is popping off right now, right?
Oh, yeah, it
Palm
is.
Springs,
Yeah.
and then on the just north of that, you've got the Joshua Tree National Park, and north of the Joshua Tree National Park, you've got four towns that some of us call the Joshua Tree Gateway communities, and that
Hmm.
includes Yucca Valley, the city of Joshua, or the town of Joshua Tree, the Morongo Valley, and the city of 29 Palms.
Yep.
And the city of 29 Palms has one of the largest, or actually maybe the largest marine base in the United States. And
Yes.
so, a lot of this community are, current military professionals, the veteran community, and they trickle in and out of these towns, and they really provide like a lot of life and energy, entrepreneurship, right? Based off of their contributions to, this community by and large. And
Right.
so one of the nonprofits that Nadia mentioned, Miltree, is really responsible for working with a lot of our veterans in order to help them with their creative expression related to, PTSD, some of their trauma, et cetera, et cetera.
Hmm.
And so, again, like the beautiful part of, the art and science of things, in my opinion, is that you can turn your art, and through the scientific method, you can create a business right around, your ability to express yourself, which
That is
Nadia
a
has
fact.
proven
Hmm.
that you can do, right?
Yes.
She took all of that pain and channeled it into this story, right? Because then, like, you're just like, okay, well, I'm expressing myself, but now I need a platform,
Hmm.
right? Which you then created a publishing company. So to talk to us a little bit about that journey and what that was like.
Man, it's been this whole endeavor has been so interesting. So, to even how this book came about. So, I've been trying to write like a regular book. I just say regular, like, a chapter book in order.
Right.
And what I was finding great difficulty in, I'm just like, this isn't producing, but I had all these like individual pieces. And so it was interesting because there was a 29 Palms host a book fair,
Yep, yep,
like
yep, yep, yep.
book event. I forget what it's actually called, so excuse me. But a big time book event, and like people fly in here to get
Wow.
it's pretty known. People fly in here, and there's performances all around town type of thing.
Is this the Morongo Basin Read, the big read?
No, it's not that one.
It's the 29 Palms Book Fair,
Book festival. Book
book
festival.
festival?
Yeah, it's something like that. I just don't remember
Okay.
the exact name. And I was already performing at one of the locations in town, performing a couple pieces that were not in the book. And they had put out an email asking if you are an author and you have a book, like, come sign up and you can feature your book. And I was like, well, let me see what I have because I have a lot of material because I write all the time. So I looked through my material and I started piecing it together. I'm like, oh, I have something here.
Mm.
So I took about a week and formulated this and executed its publication with the help of a mentor because I did hire a mentor
Yep.
to assist with this process. And there came this book.
Wow. So let me ask you a question. And I mean, I want to hear about the formation of the publishing company, but I do also want to ask, were you writing while you were in law enforcement?
Yeah, so I've written forever since I was young. I have some of my law enforcement stuff. I have tucked away, and some of which is gone, and probably for good. I kind of wish I had some of it now,
Yeah.
but some of it just didn't need to come to light. It was a lot of dark,
Mm,
very, very, very dark stuff. And so it needs to be palatable in another way because, seeing a lot of death, a lot of violence, a lot
mm,
of
mm, mm.
just wrong things. And I didn't have a place to execute my feelings except for on paper.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
Well, and that's like one of the things that I love thinking about being out here in this rural community, coming full circle with, what we were talking about being in the city is that you've got all this stimuli coming at you. You know what I mean? Like when you're
mhm.
living in a big town, which, for better or worse, like, and I love cities, and I will always go back and explore, but I also like the concept of being able to retreat into a rural community, a rural town, in order to really, and again, this is through the lens of a writer, because I'm a writer as well, you know, um, so that I could process,
Yeah,
and that's like the really big thing is that taking time in a rural town or community, it's okay to be a little bit bored,
yeah,
you
it
know,
is.
right?
It is. Yeah.
Yeah. Boredom allows you to then create, like
Yes.
you're like, yo, I've got all this life experience and all these great stories are happening to me and around me. And how do I help other people learn
Exactly.
what I have learned, right? Through the
Exactly.
lens of, my perspective. And so, and that's like, one thing that I would really just encourage this community. Number one, I invite people from, and I know this is going to be, there's the conflict between the old heads and the new heads, right? But I'm always trying to get my bros and like my people is from LA. I'm like, yo, just come out here for a week or a little bit and just,
Yeah.
see how restored you feel going back,
Yeah.
right?
hmm
And then also at the
Hit up
same,
a hot spring, all the things, you
you feel
know?
me? You feel me?
Yeah.
And then the people out here, I'm like, yo, let's go to LA or to another
hmm
city for a little bit, and then come back and see how we've changed, And that's one
Yeah.
thing that I've realized out here in the desert is that it's like a blank canvas. You know what I mean? There is so much opportunity out here. There's so many things to do. And the thing about the LA people or the big city people is they're like, there's nothing to do out here. And I'm like, you're not looking close enough. You know
Yeah,
what I
exactly.
mean? And then the people that live out here, like, some of them, they're not really maximizing the
Mm-mm.
opportunity in my opinion. Because I'm like, you can do whatever you want out here if you take a little bit of
Yeah.
time and
You could literally go to the national park and you could spend 365 days there and you'll see something new every day
every day,
if you
every
wanted to.
day.
It's all about mindset. It's all about what it is that you're actually trying to achieve and what are you trying to be in, what do you want?
Mm,
And then being intentional about what you want. If you everybody a lot of people claim they want peace. It's like, do you really want peace?
mm.
Or have you even defined what peace means?
So let me ask you a question then.
hmm
I mean, so you wrote this book,
hmm
and then you're like, okay, well, hey, I wanted to write this book and I did it.
Yeah.
Now it's another level, right? Which,
hmm
and what I'm assuming is that this book offered you a ton of peace, but then that line is like, okay, well, now I maybe need a little bit more chaos or I need a little bit more war because you didn't decide to like just hand over your book to somebody else. You decided to embrace the chaos of I'm going to start a publishing company so that I can release this book on my own. What was that like, Nadia?
It's it's like this. If I am still breathing, waking up, walking, talking, I have a purpose and call in my life. And sitting back ain't it. If
Mm,
these thoughts or whatever these things, we call them thoughts, right? But I don't really know what they are. But these things that swirl around in my head, if they're continuously swirling around in my head, that means there's a place that it needs to be. There's an outlet that needs to come out in.
mhm.
And so I lived in chaos being in the service, both services. And so for me, it's naturally built in. So chaos for me can be peaceful. Chaos for me is a creative space. Chaos for me puts creativity on Canva, puts creativity in those pages, puts creativity on Instagram. You know what I mean? It opens up a floodgate.
Mm,
And so why not like put it out? Like I said, I know I'm not for everybody. What
right,
I put out ain't for everybody.
right.
But you never know who you're gonna impact.
That part right there.
So just why not just get out there and impact? If you have breath, you have purpose.
So, practically, well, number one, I want to know if you've got any other books that you have in the works.
I
And
do.
then number two, talk to us about what steps did you take in order to get your book listed on Amazon, on Barnes and Nobles, and available at Walmart.
So I went through a mentorship to to kind of guide me with this whole process. And then he actually set me up with a publishing company online.
Cool.
And then we grabbed the domain of 2717 Publishing because I have my consulting firm, 2717 Consulting. And
Yep.
so it's underneath that umbrella. And just I have a children's book in the works. I've written books on merchant services, like
Yep.
understanding payment processing. I have a series that I'm working on right there. The children's book I'm working on right now is actually it's based on one of my clients. And I brought him and his wife because I've been with him for a while, and I brought him and his wife a copy of my book, and we got to talking about him and his story. He always wanted one, so I was like, let me see if I can do it. So I've broken his story up, and I have a children's book based on his life as a child in Indonesia. So
Wow.
I'm working on that right now,
Wow. Wow. Oh
and
my goodness gracious. So
yeah,
the journey continues, and
it continues.
will you most likely self-publish this yourself again?
Yes,
Yeah.
definitely, definitely. Like we have too many tools now. You
Right.
know, of course you'd want to you would like to get one of these big publishing companies because the money they offer.
Hmm.
They front you that money so you can do your work and do all that. That's fine. But also like if you want to get a lowest barrier of entry, just put it out. We have so many tools at our disposal. You could have a book, read it on YouTube, and just put it out there for the world. You
Yeah.
could put it on IG. You could self-publish. You can go through Amazon. They have a self-publishing portion and do
Hmm.
that. So my publisher, the way we set it up is Amazon is of course the biggest one, biggest I forget what they're called, subsidizer, maybe.
Hmm.
Barnes and Nobles and Walmart are second, and we just clicked the links, clicked what we wanted it linked to, and then published it through there.
Wow. So, what does it mean to you, Nadia, and so we hear about this like really just, I mean, amazing story, and you then have taken the time, the energy, and space to, you're like, okay, well, I did it for me, now I'm gonna start doing it for others, right? And let me ask you, the client that you're helping with write the children's book, are they based out here in the desert as well?
They are. They're based out here in the desert.
So what does that mean to you to be able to take your life experience and being able to transmute that or transform that into something positive to then be able to impact someone else who maybe is struggling to get out their story or get out there to solve that problem?
It means I have impact and purpose.
Woo. Yeah,
That's it.
yeah.
That's it.
I love
Like,
it. I love it. I love
why
it.
if I have the skill set, why not utilize it to help somebody else?
Yeah.
My life is not mine. What even happened to me is not mine. It was something for me to stand on and say, hey, bad things happen sometimes. Sometimes we fall, but it's a matter of what you do next. Do you get up and push through, or you lay down and just take it and die?
Mm, mm.
It's your choice.
Um, and I appreciate you saying that. And, freedom of choice is something that I'm constantly reminded of, because we do have the freedom to choose to not do anything,
Hmm.
which a lot of people don't realize. Like, indecision is a decision.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And so sometimes you have to make the choice to do things. Sometimes you have to make the choice to say, hey, I've never written a book for somebody else before, but I've written a book for me. Can I write your book?
Yeah,
Right?
why not?
Through the lens of value and purpose. And so you mentioned that there are other parts of you. So, talk to us a little bit. I know you've done some business coaching. You've talked about 2717 consulting, and you've done some work, or you're doing a lot of work around merchant payment services, which, we're currently exploring, here at Black Cactus working with you. So talk to me a little bit about, that side of you and, the sort of value that you are adding to this community based off of what you know.
Well, that's one of the reasons I named my business 2717 Consulting. It comes from Proverbs 27:17.
Mm,
Iron sharpens iron, just
mm,
as one man sharpens another.
mm,
So if my iron is sharpening and you're trying to be sharpened, why not combine and get each other sharp together?
mm,
Remember, we go farther together.
mhm, mhm,
So
mhm.
my goal is to bring what I have, my skill set, my knowledge to you to help you solve problems. Merchant services, your payment processing is usually the top three cost for a business. Most people are set up to pay the fee for a customer using their card, whether that's manually entered, whether that's tapped, whether that's swiped, whatever. And all of those have different tiered pricing. So it's like I have this level of understanding. You may not have that level of understanding, but I see you wanting to do business and good business and also provide great service. So why not come in and help you save money? That money could be maybe you want to hire somebody else part-time, full-time. Maybe you want to expand. Maybe you need a vacation. That's not mine.
It's not
My website,
yours.
I don't have a website yet. That's
Oh,
not
okay.
mine.
Sorry.
And no, they're fine. And they're in a different. I know them because I remember looking it up myself. I remember that, and they're in a different consulting business than I am.
Okay, okay, okay,
But there's only two of us now in the space with the 2717 consulting. Mine's is 2717 dot consulting. I'm pretty sure.
okay.
Always forget my own domain
Let me
because
pull
when
it
you
up.
email me, it's 2717 dot consulting. So I think
Okay.
that's the domain, right? That's the
Sorry
name.
about that, but thank
No,
you
you're
for
fine. No,
clarifying.
that's fine. That now people know if they look and that comes up, that ain't me.
That's
So
right. That's right.
my
That's right.
website's still currently being built, so you can definitely find me on Instagram.
Cool. Perfect.
So um and it's just, my calling on life is to serve and to help. I was born to be a helper. In what capacity? I don't know, because it all depends on you because you can't help everybody. I tried. It don't work. I can only help those that are wanting my help. Like I said, I know I'm not for everybody, but I may be for you. And so like for me through the way I do business, I offer free like a statement analysis, Because even just if you're already set up good, like I'm not gonna come in and disrupt that. Like for what? Because this in itself is gonna take its own learning curve, its own thing. You know what I mean? That's my personal IG account. And then I have the cash swipe dot Nadia. There we go. That's my professional merchant services account. So I try to put up there educational tools to learn about, like, for example, like you see food trucks. If you're a food truck, take a look at these 20 to 30-second videos to help you understand what it is that you actually can use. If you're a mobile business, you're going to want to have a mobile terminal equipped with a SIM card. So you're not reliant on your phone's Wi-Fi.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Mm-hmm.
if you have a SIM card, just like your phone, you can go anywhere with it. It's the same thing works in a terminal. And you can pair it with something called a cash discount program. Surcharging and cash discount are the same semantically, meaning the words and how to describe this are the same, but the law likes the word discount. So we go with the cash discount. And the way we have my terminals are set up is it's something called dual pricing. So when somebody comes in, it shows credit and cash price. So it keeps everything straight and to the point. You can link our stuff up with QuickBooks or integrate it with QuickBooks. You can integrate with most tools that most businesses are needed if they want to scale.
Right.
If you're just starting off, or if you're in the process of growing or you're already grown, like there's an option for you. And you don't have to actually go to some of these bigger companies. If you are a smaller company, and just say you're even processing what, 50 to 100 grand a month, but if your average ticket price is 10 to $50, those 3% fees on each swipe, tap, and manually entered, and if they're using a Visa, MasterCard, American Express, can vary.
Mm.
And it's a cost to you, the business. Like I said, this is one of the biggest costs for most businesses using traditional processing. And so I'm here to educate that you have another option. in cash discounting. You have other options other than the bigger guys like Square and Toast um, and Stripe. There's so many different companies that you can work with and utilize in your favor. So I come to spread the word and serve.
Yeah.
So if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. You know, at least we've made a new connect, and maybe I can bring somebody to you, you can bring somebody to me. It doesn't matter. Just a symbiotic relationship that we formulated.
Mm.
So
So, and and what I often hear, and this goes back to the art and science of business, is a
mhm.
lot of us get started out of passion. You
Yeah.
like the art. We love to cook, so we want to start a culinary business. We
Mhm.
love books, so we want to open a bookstore. We love movies, so we want to start filming movies. And don't get me wrong, that passion, that art, like, is definitely something that you want to nurture, you want to protect, you want to get started, right? However, the science then starts coming into the numbers and the math. Is the mathing, right?
Right.
And
Hmm.
ultimately, and this is so much of what Black Cactus is able to offer in the form of mentorship, in the form of coaching, the accountability, based off of this network of really great people that we've got here, right? Is that you know what you know, but you don't know what you don't know. And sometimes what you don't know has costs and consequences on the
Right.
long-term viability of your business being able to operate. Now,
Right.
your business plan, you certainly want to have the story of the qualities of your business, the mission, the vision, the core values, your products and services. But then quantitatively, and I think Jay-Z said it, men lie, women lie, numbers don't,
Numbers
right?
don't. Hmm.
Come in the form of, well, are you executing your business plan for long-term sustainability and viability? And a lot of that, you have to be either the master of the numbers, or you have to work with or empower members of your team to be able to master the numbers in order to make sure that we're telling a compelling story. And some of that is being humble. Look, y'all, like, I just want to stay creative, but I need to bring in somebody on my team, right, that I can trust to help me manage and navigate the numbers, for example.
Yeah.
And oh, go for it.
And it was Yo Gotti.
That was Yo Gotti?
Yo Gotti.
That was Yo Gotti? No
Women lie, men
way.
lie. It was Yo Gotti.
Oh man, all right, for sure.
Yeah. But numbers
Um,
don't. Numbers don't. You know?
but so let me ask you, like, I know we only got a couple more minutes
Yeah.
left. Mindful of, the educational portion. I mean, how do and I know that you can't help everybody, even though we want to, but how do you educate the people that, don't necessarily know what you know, because you spent a lot of time, like, developing this skill set? How do you get them to really understand the value that you're trying to add to them?
Well, I think you spoke on it. You build relationship.
Yeah,
This ain't about sales.
yeah,
But the sale is the cherry on top.
right.
If you're going in there trying to sell, just imagine somebody selling to you. How do you feel?
Mm, mm.
Think about it.
Hey, well, and you know what? And that's, and I appreciate you saying that,
Mhm.
because that then is something that I've had to really learn being out here in the desert in a small town, is that, you know, your reputation and your respect are directly related to your values and the interpretation of the value that you can convey.
Right.
And if you're out here churning and burning bridges and
Right.
burning relationships, people don't want to work with you.
That's correct.
You know what I'm saying? And if you're just treating people like numbers, which a lot of people do in Oakland and LA and New York, you know what I'm saying? Like, you don't really necessarily feel the costs and consequences of having a poor rep. But
Right.
in a town like this, where your livelihood is directly related to your respect and your reputation, you're not out here burning relationships, doing things that you can't, or saying you're going to do things that you can't do or won't do, and taking people's money and not offering compassion. You know what I'm saying? And so it becomes really important, in my opinion, to protect your relationships in a small town.
100%.
You know?
Hmm.
Oh my goodness. Well, Nadia, like, this was such a dope conversation. I really, really, really appreciate you taking time and space. we're definitely going to be publishing, this content and more, across our social media channels, on our YouTube, on our Facebook group, what's going on at Black Cactus 29 Palms. If you are interested in learning a little bit, if you want to come, if you're not local and want to come out to the desert, Black Cactus is offering corporate retreats for people of all walks of life, including digital nomads. If you need to get away for a weekend and tap in and learn some things, I want to
Yeah.
encourage you to come visit.
It's the season right now too.
It's the
It's
season.
oh my God, it's beautiful. The bloom is coming too. The butterflies. There's a migration of monarchs that come through.
That's that
And
part right
monarchs,
there.
yeah, monarchs aren't everywhere in the world, but they come through here, and it's pretty amazing. Go out to the park, you see the big old fat caterpillars and just butterflies floating everywhere, and the flowers are blooming on the cactuses. It's pretty dang cool.
And like so poetic, mindful of your description of that rebirth process that you went through in so many different ways, which I think that the desert kind of shows you what sort of butterfly you are.
For sure.
um so like let us know, how do we get in touch with you, how do we work with you, what else you got coming up, that maybe people can take advantage of over the next, like, 48 hours or so.
Yeah, if you have if you're a business in town or local or somewhat local, nationwide, I do anything. You can reach me at 760-262-7133. Just
um,
shoot me a text or you can DM me. If you want your statement analyzed, you can DM me free so I know I can identify it, and or also just send me a photo of your statement and I can go ahead and submit it and see what we can do. See if it even makes sense to work together. Or if you just have questions in general, hit me up on my Instagram, my LinkedIn. I'll give you that link as well.
cool.
I'm not on it as often as Instagram. I try to have my primary focus on there. And let's see. Yeah, my website's not done yet, so that'll come later. This all takes time. I'm
Yeah.
realizing this all takes a lot of time if you want things done a certain way. And just follow me there in those places. And
Awesome.
just reach out. I'm
Awesome,
here.
awesome, awesome.
Hmm.
Nadia, I'm going to stop recording here in a minute.
Okay.
I want you to hang out for a little bit.
All
But
right.
again, just for our audience, we appreciate Nadia so much. We appreciate her story, the vulnerability, and then also the subject matter expertise. So definitely tap in, get the book. You feel me? Get the book, learn a little bit more firsthand, and that is going to be a great introduction in order to be able to feel the warmth of Nadia's just like skill sets and her expertise. So
I
we
appreciate that.
appreciate you for tapping in on our first session of Cactus Sessions,
Yeah.
and we'll talk to you all soon.
Thank you for having me.
Of course, peace.
Looking for an inspiring location for your next corporate retreat? The Joshua Tree Gateway communities and surrounding desert landscapes offer the perfect blend of tranquility,